Well, welcome, friends. We are here today for this parent to parent live stream talking about something that has happened in our community, the tragedy at Astroworld, and it has affected so many people. And it might be affecting your child, which you may not know about, because really it's all over the place. You see the videos, even on our broadcast, the vigils. It's just really hard and something that you can't avoid. And what is that doing mentally to you or your child? Well, I have the perfect person to talk about that with. We have Tiffanie Williams-Brooks, who is with the Harris Center, and they are offering mental health services, and they have clients that were affected by the Astroworld tragedy. So, Tiffanie, first off, I'm just going to ask you, what have the past few days been like when you talk to clients who have been affected from that tragedy?
Rashi, thanks again for having me. We've had only a few clients to talk about the tragedy. And of course, it's mainly because they've seen things on the news, they have Googled information, they're seeing real-time accounts of what actually happened. One client actually expressed to one of their therapists that they saw one of the concert goers on the floor, on the ground at the concert being resuscitated. That's very traumatizing. But again, we've only had a few clients to come in and talk about what they've witnessed what they've witnessed with the concert.
And when you talk about this actually being talked about in schools and teachers and all of that, within the community, you have kind of a personal thing as well with your teenage son telling you about it.
Absolutely. I have a 17-year-old son. He attends school in Fort Bend, and he actually came home and said, Mom, this is all they're talking about. In every class, they're talking about this because there was a lot of kids who are fans of the artist. So they're talking about it at schools. Some of the teachers have even expressed that their classrooms are dominated by the talk of the concert and the tragedy that took place. So it's everywhere. Of course, it impacts the victims, it impacts the family of the victims, but it also impacts those kids who are fans of the artist, those kids who have access to social media. And that's pretty traumatizing for them, even if they weren't at the concert.
And so one of the points that we've talked about, and we did a story last night, which you can find on our website, and I believe it might be playing after this live stream, after we talk. But the fact that parents, which is interesting, after a certain age, maybe teenagers feel, okay, maybe I'm just going to back off and just say, be careful, and then let them kind of do their own thing. That's a big red flag, among others we'll talk about later. But what are you supposed to do as a parent when it comes to asking questions?
Absolutely great question. With a teenager, their top two priorities is to establish independence from their parents and to socialize with peers. Their peer group is like the priority for them. However, parents still have to parent their kids. Of course, we have to be respectful of their independence. We have to be respectful of them establishing their own personality. But as a parent, you still have to be involved. They still need our guidance. They still need our support to maneuver through this time in their life. It's difficult for them. But I think for some of us as parents, we want to pull back just a little bit to help them navigate this. However, we still have to parent. We have to be able to allow them to be independent, but we also have to check in. We need to know about their peers. Who are your peers? Who's your peer group? How are things going with you? We have to be able to ask those questions. And again, I know it can be difficult because, of course, as a teenager, you want to hold things. You don't want to tell everything and share everything with your parents, but you want to share it with your peers. But as a parent, you have to be supportive and understanding and able to ask those open ended questions. I often tell parents, try to stay away from those yes no questions. Ask open ended questions. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What can I do to support or help you? I think that's really important in communicating with your team.
And how do you monitor social media? Because sure, I don't have kids that age, but I could get a social media account and try to just lurk and, that way. But what's the best way to do it?
I will say, so once he had a cell phone, we talked about actually boundaries and expectations with the cell phone. We told him that we would be checking his access, we'll be checking his social media account, but we set that up front. We actually had a conversation with him. And of course, he was a little concerned about it. But I think as parents, it's important to know what's going on with your child. It's important to have that discussion. It's not okay just to surprise, hey, let me check your phone, but talk about that. But we still have to be involved. Again, we understand that they want to be independent from us, but as a parent, you still have to be involved. You still need to check. You have to monitor what they're doing, but you also have to communicate. I want you to be safe and I want things to be okay with you. So I'm going to check your account. I'm going to check in with you to see how things are going. That's important to do as a parent, but I know it's difficult and it can be a struggle for some.
And I think it's also good to just on the forefront be like, it's not that I don't trust you. It's just I want to be able to make sure you're within safe boundaries, which is something that my parents told me, which I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
So we were talking about red flags. One of the things that popped up that we were talking about is your child being on the phone too much. So when do you know that it's too much and they're doing something maybe that should be concerning to you?
Absolutely. Great question. I will say teens on average spend 9 hours a day online. Children between the ages of 8 and 12 may spend about 6 hours online. That is a lot of time to be on social media. However, that's what's happening. A red flag, or the first red flag, identifying if there's more time that they're spending on the phone, especially with this tragedy, whether if they were at the concert or maybe they're just watching videos, but identifying that maybe there's too much time because they could be looking at videos of some of the concert goers explaining what happened. And I've heard some of those. I've seen some of those on the news, and it's pretty graphic. That could be re traumatizing for some of the kids that may have been there or just kids that know of friends who were there. So I would definitely monitor that. So you may notice that they may be in their room a little bit more often. They may be on their phone. They may be on their laptop more often than usual. That's a concern.
And what about actually, changes in behavior? What are some of those that you can look out for?
Absolutely. There are several red flags, and maybe they could be not socializing as much. You may have a child who was really outgoing. They would spend time with their friends, they would talk with their friends, or maybe even interact with the family a lot. If you're noticing that that has changed, they don't want to come out of their room, they don't want to watch a movie with you, they're not answering the phone calls from their friends, that's a concern. The other concern could be a change in their appetite. You may see some children who may have a decreased appetite. I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I'll eat something later. Or you may also see the other extreme of that, maybe excessive eating, eating a lot of snacks, more than usual. That's a concern. Also, there may be a sense of secrecy. They're keeping secrets, they're whispering on the phone. Whenever you pass, they're covering up their phone. They may minimize their computer screen when you come into the room. That's a concern with the secret. Now, again, I'll say with teens, they want their independence, they want to do their own thing. But if you're noticing more of that with the secrecy, that is definitely a red flag.
Okay, so you have these red flags. You want to approach your child not in a very obviously like a accusatory way. And there's a stigma that getting mental help is not cool, obviously, and you know about that too. So how do you approach your child that maybe it's a good idea for us to see somebody?
I would tell parents, and I still tell parents this, it's okay to talk to your kid. It's okay to go to them and let them know, I love you, but I'm concerned. I've seen this, that, and the other without being accusatory, but being very honest and upfront. I'm concerned about you. I want you to be okay. And I want us to try to talk to someone who may be able to help us. But again, it has to be in a non accusatory way. It has to be in a very supportive and loving way. And it's okay for parents to be honest about their feelings. I'm worried about you. I'm concerned about you. I love you and I don't want anything to happen to you. Those are the ways that parents can talk to their children. And it may actually decrease the walls of defensiveness with them because as a teenager, you believe that you know everything. But it's the way that parents approach these kids that could be really helpful in linking them to mental health services. I tell parents also don't be afraid to ask for help. Many families will either avoid or just not try to initiate mental health services because of the stigma that we talked about earlier, worried that others could look at them differently or judge them because of that. But here at the Harris Center, we really try to educate our families. We try to educate them about the importance of mental health services. We try to meet them where they are. What I mean by that is that we have a person-centered approach where we allow that family to sort of guide the services and the treatment that they want. We're there to support and provide the services as needed to them.
And I think it's really important because I asked also, what can parents expect and the child expect when they come there? And I can tell you just kind of from personal experience, I had gone when I was a teenager and my parent was right there. And it was like the list of things that they were concerned about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are all these things wrong with me? And then I had to address each one with my parent there, kind of defending myself. But the great thing is that you talk to the child separately and then the parent separately, which I think could be a game changer.
Absolutely. Giving that child time to talk with the therapist alone is as you stated. It really is. We definitely meet with them together, but we do ask that the parent would step out so that that child can talk about their experiences and just feel open to talking with the therapist. And of course, with our eligibility center, our main location is at 9401 Southwest Freeway, and parents and families can walk into the location starting at 7:30, or they can call our access line and actually schedule an appointment, whether that's in person or virtual. But it is very important to really get a chance to talk to that teen without the parent being present. It makes them more comfortable, and they feel like they're important, and they feel as though what they say really means something. Again, sometimes we have parents who would like to take over the session and tell everything that's going on that's wrong with the child. That really puts up the defenses with the child. So having them separated is really helpful. And again, there's some teens that are okay with their parent being there, but we definitely offer to meet with that teen alone.
Can you explain how a parent might be listening thinking, well, I'm, open with my child and my child would probably tell me everything. So why someone like you? So what is the answer to that question?
So again, we have teens and parents who have a great relationship. They're really open with their parents, which is a really good thing. But there are times that a teenager may feel as though I don't want to tell my mom that. I don't want her to judge me or think differently of me. So I may feel more comfortable with a counselor. This happens all the time. And I want parents to know it doesn't mean that you're not doing a great job as a parent. It just means that that teen who I talked about earlier, like to establish their independence, may feel a little bit more comfortable talking about those topics that may be really sensitive for them to talk about with the parent.
And something very interesting that you told me is that parents a lot of times come to you all, they're referred to you all, but it's at a point where they're thinking about homicide, suicide, I mean, very extreme circumstances. So it just kind of shows how it is so important to not get to obviously that point, but starting off right now, just to get it in the clear.
Right. So there are times that we receive referrals. Either they're at their limit, thinking about hurting themselves or hurting others. And that's why it's so important for parents to know when you have a teenager, you're still a parent. It's important to monitor your child on a daily basis and check in with them. It's important to try to get those conversations going because we have teenagers who may come to us in crisis and will tell us, my mom never asked about it. So they're feeling alone. And again, I'll go back to even the pandemic. The pandemic has caused so much isolation with our teens and with our families just in general. And there are times where they felt isolated and no one was really interested in what was going on with them. And then they come to us and they're in full blown crisis. So again, I encourage those parents check in. Even if you think your child's doing okay, check in, have those conversations, ask those questions of them. And again, because I know as a parent, sometimes they're going to be like, everything's fine, leave me alone, whatever. But you still have to check in with them. Another thing that I will tell parents, it's important to check in with the school. Many of the teachers, many of the counselors know exactly what's going on with your child. It's okay to reach out to them and find out how's he doing. You're not bothering the school. You want to make sure that your child is okay. And sometimes they may feel more comfortable talking to the teacher. So please reach out to them. But understand even though your child is over 13 years old, you still have to have this conversation and you still have to try to find a way to connect.
I think that's such an important point, because your resource could be the teacher or the counselor or whomever. The other thing I was going to say is I'd like to just kind of talk a little bit about how mental health is like physical health. And you were saying, like, you have the flu, you go to the doctor. If you're just not feeling well mentally, you go to the doctor. I mean, how common is it to ask for help and get help mentally?
It is very common. And again, just that comparison. When you're not feeling well, you go to your PCP. When you're not emotionally feeling well, seek services for mental health. It's important, it's vital to our survival. And having to really educate the community and educate our parents and our kids about the importance of that. But again, the stigma is there. It's really difficult to explain the importance of this, not being so focused on what other people think. Some people would be amazed at how many people actually seek services for mental health support. Right now, we are serving over 3,000 children and adolescents in our program here. And it's a struggle. It has been a struggle. There are families who may come to us because the school refers and they go, okay, I have to follow through with it. But we really want our families to be educated on those warning signs and to be educated on when there is a need to seek services. But we try to make it very comfortable here. We try to meet the families where they are. Of course, we provide services here in our offices, but we can also provide services virtually. And some of the families really appreciate that, so they don't have to come to the office to receive those services. But it's
And
important.
last thing I was going to ask is, when it comes to, some people might think, how much is it going to cost me? I mean, you all work with people, and cost shouldn't really be the factor. It should be just taking the time to see that
It
person.
really should not be the factor, Rashi. We take Medicaid here at the Harris Center. We take private insurance. We also have families who have no insurance whatsoever. We work with those families. We base the amount that they may have to pay on the number of people in the household, the salary of the household. We use a sliding scale fee. So we really try to make it easy for the families to come in and not worry about what they have to pay. The priority is that you're seeking services and that we are helping you keep your child and yourself safe and healthy.
And there are services that are available at the Harris Center that you might not know about. Also, I want to make note that this Astroworld tragedy did prompt me to talk with you and see about children getting mental health services, but really it can be anything. Pandemic has taken a toll, just maybe being away from friends and family. There are so many reasons why someone might be feeling some way. So what is the best way to reach out to you all?
Yes. Again, the tragedy has highlighted many points or many things that has related or families have been able to connect to. But again, with the pandemic, it's also opened up many areas for our families to seek services because of the isolation. But if families are in need of services, they can walk in to our main location. We are located here at 9401 Southwest Freeway. This is our eligibility center. So any child in Harris County needing services with us can walk in starting at 7:30 a.m. Many times we have families who are at 6 o'clock in the morning ready for services. But they also can reach out to our access line because there may be some families who may want to receive services virtually. We can actually do that. We can have intakes done virtually or in person. Now, after that intake is completed, and once a diagnosis is identified for that child, and if they need medication, and they would need to see a psychiatrist, we do ask that those first psychiatric intake appointments are done in person. After that intake is completed, then we can schedule virtual appointments as needed. But the main thing is we're here. We want to help you. And you can walk in Monday through Friday, starting at 7:30 in the morning. You come in, we have a list of items that you would have to bring, proof of insurance, proof of residency, etc. And we can get you connected with a therapist immediately.
All right. Well, Tiffanie Williams-Brooks, thank you so much with the Harris Center. And we have all this information also at the bottom of your screen there and on our website as well, with other resources and just ways to get the help that you need. Really, again, I want to emphasize that financially, that's not an issue. They will work with you and other organizations will as well. It's just about finding the time and then going to that resource and getting the help. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Rashi.
Well, you know, what happened at the Astroworld Festival is affecting a lot more people than you might even think.
That's right. Counseling services are being offered, and it's a tool that parents may really want to consider for their child, whether or not they went to the concert. You know, the videos on social media, coverage on news, I mean, it's really everywhere, and we're focusing on the mental toll of the tragedy. I spoke with a licensed counselor to get some insight on what parents can expect when reaching out for help.
The videos, the vigils, it's arguably unavoidable.
My own son, who's 17 years old, high schooler in Fort Bend, he says that's all they're talking about at school right now. They're talking about this traumatic event that happened in our city. So it's impacting so many people on so many different levels.
Tiffanie Williams-Brooks is a licensed professional counselor with the Harris Center for Mental Health and IDD. Most recently, they have been helping adolescents impacted by Friday's tragedy. Your child might be suffering and you or them might not even know about the impact.
It's everywhere right now. And I would tell parents who are struggling with this or, wondering how this is impacting my child, ask that question. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to find out. If you want to hang out with him, I need to talk to that parent. I need to talk to his mother and find out that. But a lot of parents feel, as I stated earlier, that once a kid gets to a certain age, well, they can kind of do this on their own. No, that child still needs to have a parent involved. They still need to be directed. They still need to be supported and guided. They're not adults yet. That is something that we have to educate our parents about, and to be able to look for those symptoms. Find out if there's any changes in those patterns of sleep patterns. Check on your child. Are they on their phone all night long, all day, up throughout the night? Because a child needs to receive at least 8 hours of sleep a night. And if you know that your child's not sleeping, or your child's not eating, or maybe they're not socializing as much as they used to, or maybe they're being very secretive about certain things.
Other red flags include your child not socializing and or eating as much. Also, if they're being secretive, taking them to a professional counselor could be a lifesaver.
We have many parents, many families who come to us when things are really, really bad for those children. They may be thinking of suicide or even homicide. And they tell us, I didn't want to bring my child here because I didn't want the family to think that they were crazy or that they were so sick. We at the Harris Center, we really have to break down those walls of stigmatizing mental illness. It is normal for you to reach out and ask for help, just like if you go to the doctor and you have the flu.
And we do have information on the Harris Center on the website that's linked to several stories, actually, because we've done so many about mental health. And we're continuing the conversation about this crucial matter tomorrow on our live stream on all of our social media platforms at 3:30 p.m. with the Harris Center. And I can answer your questions, so please be sure to join.